morning. The video's here. The Tyrique George's video is here. I'll kind of give everybody a second to trickle in, as it were. But I'm going to do this a little bit differently than I normally do. Normally, I would pre-record all this, and I would cut and chop and change certain stuff. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to instead, we're going to go through it live. So I have all the clips set up and I have the data and stuff set up already. And then obviously some of this stuff is in Google Slides. But how I figured it would make sense to do this is we'll do everything, and then I'll cut it, and that'll be what ends up going on YouTube and ends up going out as the podcast. And then because there's no game today, I figured it would be fun to go through mailbag stuff and some other random questions and whatever. And if there's enough people, we can do some other stuff too. But that's how I figured it would be fun to do this. So the first half will be the podcast. The second half will be like a mailbag that maybe I'll record and I'll just stick out midweek as like a midweek mailbag-ish question, because there won't be anything to talk about that much other than previewing Leicester, but there's not that much to talk about there. So let's get into it. So I did a video like this before about Mykhailo Mudryk, who is obviously a very talented player, who is somebody that people are really excited about, but is, in terms of training age, which is like you'll hear that phrase in strength and conditioning a lot, is how many years of like focused elite level training have been put into this athlete. And normally it's to do with like weightlifting. But Mykhailo Mudryk is like a low training age guy for a 23-year-old prospect. And people like that video, and I think it's a cool thing to talk about, how you can use data to coach these players. And a player I have been watching with like real appetite is Tyrique George, because he is one of the most dominant youth level players we've seen. He's extremely highly regarded by everybody. And he's getting minutes. He's getting minutes at Chelsea at a much earlier age than most prospects have historically. The only other prospects that I can think about getting kind of the run he's getting at 18 are like Hudson-Odoi is kind of the one that comes to mind, at least in attacking positions. There have been others who've gotten some looks, but really it's a pretty big step pretty early. And the thing with young players is that you have a lot of opportunity to shape them into what they're going to become before they settle into what they are, if that makes sense. And I want to talk about that because I think it's fun to talk about. So first off, Tyrique George is already like at youth levels a statistical monster. Okay, monster. If you look, the top two bars are from Y-Scout. This is his PL2 data. So like per 90, he's putting up north of an expected goal and an expected assist. That's not including penalties. He has 6 passes into the penalty area. That is huge. Like a player who does 3 passes into the penalty area is insanely productive. He's taking 5 shots a game. He's creating 5 shots a game. This is like obscene statistical output for PL2. And PL2 doesn't translate amazingly to senior football. But like, to give you a comparative example, Cole Palmer was like a 0.7 XG plus XA PL2 guy. So again, it's not perfect. Like, you can't say, well, it's higher, so Tyrique George is going to be better than Cole Palmer. But he is in a class of his own, really, along with other players like Harvey Vale, who are like way too good for PL2 at this point. In a class of his own as a creator in youth football. There was a good tweet from Nathan Evans, who is an Opta fellow, who was saying he has created 26 chances in Premier League 2 this season, the joint most of any player alongside Harvey Vale. He's second for completed dribbles, third for assists and touches in the opposition box, fourth for passes played into the box. And he is doing that with substantially fewer minutes than others because he's been spending some time with the first team, which means sometimes he misses PL2 games. And from this place, I think is a good place to get into the video, because what is clear is from an output perspective at youth football, he's very, very good. And I don't really want to show the first team minutes stuff because there's so few of them. But the output, and it's weird to do like per 90 stuff when he has like 4 sub appearances and then 1 start. It ends up being very wonky. So I think this might be a good place to start with the video. And let's do this here. So we got some Tyrique George clips, and let me adjust the size, and maybe this stuff I'll cut from the YouTube video. So I watched everything he did for the first team, and I watched mostly only first team stuff because, again, we know he can dominate at youth level, so I thought it was important to just start here. And so one thing that's very common and is difficult when we're talking about translating first team and youth football is that Tyrique George has played almost exclusively on the left for the youth team, sometimes as a 10, sometimes as a 9, but almost exclusively on the left, whereas with the first team he's played mostly on the right. But what we see is that he has a tremendous ability to create separation from markers. He is very good at creating space to drive inside with shoulder feints and good chops and like changes of direction to create space. Again, he is very comfortable going with both feet, which is really nice for young players. It opens up a lot of developmental avenues if they can really attack with both feet. One thing we've seen is that he's very good at using his pace to start 1v1 dribble attempts, where there was like a really viral tweet years and years and years ago from Seb C about Hudson-Odoi, where when wingers want to receive to go 1v1, you need the space to receive to build up speed. If you receive really, really close to the fullback's just going to jam you, and you have no ability to attack right after receiving. And what Tyrique George does a very good job of is creating separation between himself and the fullback, and then giving the space to go and attack his fullback 1v1. And because he can really attack both ways, whether it's to cross or to shoot, it opens up a lot of avenues for it to be difficult for defenders to deal with him. One of the other things that I think stands out very clearly is that he has excellent passing vision, right? Like, he's loaded up almost into a 1v3. You have nobody really to connect with unless you play with Guiu here, but you have an overload at the back post. Like, this is really good recognition, and it's the absolute right type of pass, right? Like, it's mostly flat because it's going to get there quickly, and it's shaped in behind to lead Jeff Felix to attack it. I think a lot of young players here would have tried to play Mudryk and not Felix to be safer. And that's a pretty exciting sign. And again, he just repeatedly is so good at create separation, get good shots off. Like, again, the level of the opposition has to be taken into account, but also he's 18 and like these are his first senior minutes. It's nice to see him really driving at people decisively, and it's not ponderous. And we saw in preseason, right? Like, I was at this game, and I actually came away from this game somewhat negative on Tyrique. Like, I thought, okay, like he's not at the level yet, and I think that's fine. Like, Wrexham are a very physical team, but I thought one of the things that I liked is that he absolutely was not scared to keep going into 1v1s even when he was rustled physically. I think another thing we've seen is his connections are actually quite good, which can often be a thing that we don't see with young players, where all the time is condensed when you get to senior football, right? Like it's way, way, way harder to bounce and lay off and hold up when you have a 28-year-old man kicking through the back of you than when you're holding off an 18-year-old. And I've been actually pretty happy with his ability to create separation and then use that separation to do other things. And again, it's very exciting to see how comfortable he is going both ways. It's very exciting to see his ability to maintain pace. It's very exciting to see kind of the different kinds of passes he has in his tool belt. And a thing that I'm going to talk about in the video we're going to assess him on, I think there's a lot of scope for him as an off-ball mover, where like watch these actions here where he plays into Carney and watch how deliberate and intense the movement off the ball is. We're like, okay, the runner gets picked up, so he pulls out of it, and that's fine. But imagine you have a fullback coming and what that opens just by making an intense run. And again, he plays here and makes a deft movement in behind. Like Carney, there is worlds where Carney can totally slip this pass and he's in behind. And it doesn't come off. But that off-ball movement is really, really critically important. Here's another one where he ends up kind of 1v1 in that left channel. And again, he's very comfortable. He is a legitimate threat to beat you to the line. He is not just looking to get inside on his right foot. He is a legitimate threat to go to his left foot. And when you compare to someone like Nani Madueke, who like will nominally go to the byline, but the quality of service from his right foot is often lacking, even when it's like cutbacks or stand-ups, I think this half of things is really exciting. And so when you put together like, okay, at senior level, he clearly has the dribbling and the passing stuff. And he's shown a pretty good ability to get shots off. And again, the quality of the opposition is what it is. But he has definitely shown an ability to create separation and get decent shots. And sometimes his shot selection is lacking. There are things we can talk about there. But he has shown a pretty strong ability to create the separation and get shots off against real players. I thought the Noah game was like really good for him. I thought he showed a lot of ability to break that fullback down and then get into good creative positions, less than good shooting positions in this game. He had one shot, but he had 4 shot assists. But really, really nice passing stuff, right? And I think that's a good place to start. So in terms of coaching this, right? So there's like, we've watched the video, we see the youth stats, and it's like, okay, the kid is real. He can play, he can hang. And the video is like, all right, there's a lot of really positive things to start with. And for me, the coaching focus is going to be very little on ball. I think for me, my feel on this, and some people will agree, some people will disagree, is like these players, Tyrique Georges and Nani Madueke's and Cole Palmer's and whatever, are on such a different level in terms of thinking about the game and reading and reacting that, like, who am I to tell them what to do in the final third? I can give them ideas and I can shape them to like, hey, this is valuable. This is valuable. This is important. This is where we want to get. But like, who am I to tell Tyrique George when he's 1v1 against the fullback, oh, you have to do this to get past him? Like, there's no value to that coming from a coach, I don't think, right? At least not from me. Like, I was a goalkeeper. What do I know about dribbling past people 1v1? I know it's valuable. I know when you beat that player, these are where you should be looking for cutbacks and squares and whatever. And like, these are the trends and your shooting locations you should be thinking about. But kind of how you get there is a lot more in your realm. But the two things that I think are really important are off-ball stuff and defending, which is also off-ball. And so we'll talk about those with some clips and kind of how I would show him. But in terms of like general structure, right? In terms of general structure, there's a really difficult it's really difficult for him because he's splitting his time between the first team and the PL2 team. So he has 2 match days every week. Like, this is not, when I did the Midra video, it's easy because he was never going to play PL2 games. So you only, and Chelsea weren't in Europe. So you only have the 1 match a week to plan your schedule around. But with Tyrique George, you really have to balance, like, where is he playing? Who is he playing with? What's the travel? What's the gym work? What's the load? Because at the same time, he's 18. You don't want to have to get him injured. So from like a rough scheduling perspective, if you start from Monday, which I don't know, doesn't really make sense to start from as a week, but I guess let's start from Sunday. He will have a PL2 match day on the Friday or the Saturday frequently. They don't really play Sundays that often. That day after that is either going to be off or it's a regen session. So you're just kind of foam rolling, jogging, stretching, rondos, nothing crazy, but regen. This day is a really good day to do a recap video session. So looking back at the week that just happened. So whether that's the Conference League match day with the first team, but also the PL2 match day. And these give you really good opportunities for evaluating on the differences between the two. So like, what are you able to do in PL2 that you aren't able to do in the Conference League? Or what are you able to do in the Conference League that is different because of the level of opposition, physically, technically, tactically? So that gives you a lot of opportunity, right? And when you're talking about youth players, a lot of them is like the mental development of like everything is faster and the stakes are higher. If you make a mistake in a PL2 game, it doesn't really matter. If you make a mistake in a first team game, it does matter. And so these video sessions are a really good place where if you have a coach who's kind of aware of the pathway and also connected with the PL2 team and is watching all those games, those video sessions can be super, super important. After the Sunday, Monday and Tuesday are going to be the only real training days that he's going to get every week because he has 2 matches. And so you're going to have the team training. But after the team training, you have to be doing IDP work. IDP is individual development plan. A lot of the Premier League clubs now have coaches dedicated to IDP. And the real benefit is, can you get very specific ideas done? So we're going to talk about some stuff in the video, but if you want him to work on his off-ball movement to arrive at the back post, you can take 15, 20 minutes after training, because today the training sessions are not as long as they used to be. Very few people are training longer than an hour and a half. You can do finishing exercises for arriving at the back post. If you want to work at his ability to pick people out on the crosses, you can set that up for 15 minutes. And sometimes that'll be paired with a few other players who have similar development goals, or you might have a striker who needs to work on some finishing stuff with him, or whatever it is. You can do that work on Mondays. After that, you're going to have the team video stuff, and you're going to have gym work. A really, really big thing with someone at his age is, can you get them to their adult body? So if you compare Mo Salah when he first came to Chelsea versus Mo Salah now, that guy is a physical animal. You compare Bukayo Saka, who we're going to talk about Saka. You compare Bukayo Saka to when he started versus now, physical animal. Right? You compare to any of these like high-level goal-scoring wingers, and a huge part of their development is they get hench. They get really strong. They get really strong to hold people off. They get really strong to get to their spots. And so someone like Tyrique doing the physical work to go from a very lean frame to putting muscle on is going to be important for him. And is going to be important if he wants to be like one of the best wingers in the world. And then you can do more player video, right? So this might be, we want to focus on developing a specific habit or technique or whatever it is that week. And you can do some short player video. And these blocks aren't like, you're not doing 2 hours of video with Tyrique, right? It might be 15 minutes. It might be I'm going to show you 5 clips and we're going to talk about them. And then tomorrow after training, we're going to do a little thing. And that's it. I'm just going to prime you to start thinking about it. Or the team training session tomorrow is going to be this, and I'm going to give you 3 clips and we're going to talk about it. And I just want your brain to be primed to think about that. Tuesday, you're going to train with the team. You're going to do a little bit more IDP work afterwards. You're going to do some more gym work. And then you're probably traveling after training, because Wednesday you're training wherever the conference league game is. Maybe it's at home and you don't have travel, but there's a good chance you're traveling. And then you have the conference league game. You have the day after the conference league game, which is going to be a regen session. Again, you're probably not doing too much there. You also have to recover from the mental load, right, of thinking about all the things you have to think about. And then you have your PL2 match day. So it's a pretty hectic schedule for him. And managing these is really difficult, but also very important. So the two areas that I would really focus on with him from a coaching perspective are defensively and off the ball as a runner. Defensively, I think a really important thing to think about is, for a young player, it's much more about like the floor than it is the ceiling that gets you on the field as a young player, where if you cannot mess up and not let the team down, it's way easier to play you. Like you look at Alfie Gilchrist last year. Alfie Gilchrist was not an exceptional player by any means, but he never really made errors. So it's way easier to keep playing him. You know what I mean? And so when you talk about these players, right, especially the attackers, and not that I think Tyrique George is this, but sometimes it can be difficult to convince them that defending matters. And a good way to start with something like this is take a player that they may wish to emulate. So somebody like Bukayo Saka is somebody you might see as a similar, as like a goal for Tyrique George. He's a winger. He comes through for Arsenal. He plays for England, from London. Like, that's a good place to start. And so you can go, okay, in the data, we see Bukayo Saka was second in the Premier League for attacking third tackles last year. He was one of the most pressy attackers in the whole league. And then you can layer that in with, okay, Tyrique, these are your tactical instructions with the team, right? We have the 6-6 pressing to their 6. The wingers are managing the fullback, but sometimes you're going to have to come in. Sometimes you're going to have to jump to a center back. Here's what that looks like with your instructions. And then you can show clips. So I can break out for Tyrique George, I can break out, here's the Bukayo Saka video of him being really diligent defensively. He does a great job to take off the line, and as soon as he takes away the passing lane, now he closes, gets a tackle, we get to start a counter, and again, keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. Can you build that diligence? One of the best attackers in the world, and you're still pressing. Here's another clip. He jumps to 5 seconds into a game. One of the best wingers in the world, and he's chasing like a madman to stay connected and keep defending and keep working. Here's another one. Generates a high turnover. Just why we're clips. And you can sit down with Tyrique George, or you can sit down with somebody else and say, listen, this is an important part of the game, even for the best wingers in the world. I think we can talk about this more, and you can bring it to his attention, and you can focus on it in training, and you can bring it up in the post-match video and the pre-match video and the IDP video, and it's a good place to prime him. And so this is something that I would really focus on with him, where because of his physical talent, he's very quick. He actually has the capability to be quite an impactful presser at the senior level, especially if you build really good habits there. And when you're talking about the future of Chelsea, like, having someone who is an elite attacking output player but also a very good defender is so valuable to your team. So that's the first thing I would look at. The second thing I would look at is off the ball. Total Football, who's like a big stats follow, I had this great tweet: whenever I like a soccer player, it's because he gets in the box. And there's this great stat that the average player only has the ball for something like 2 minutes of every game. And Tyrique is very good on the ball already, and he's shown inklings of being very good off the ball. And I think there's a lot of scope to improve where he arrives in the box, where he gets his shots. And like, here's a map of Raheem Sterling in 2017, 2018, and you can see, like, look how low the probability of scoring of all these chances out here are, but look how good a job he does of getting into the 6-yard box. Look how good a job he does of getting in here to score. And there's some really good video that you can show for that. And so there's two halves of it, right? The first is getting to the back post. So when we talk about where we want to get shots, like, there's been a lot of Enzo Maresca has talked about, like, I want my wingers to arrive here, and like, this is what Raheem Sterling does. And so you can see, like, soon as Jesus beats his man, he busts his ass to beat the fullback to get to the back post for a tap-in. Easiest goal you'll ever score, but he does the work to get there. You watch again. Watch Sterling. Soon as the ball goes in behind, he is arriving at the back post for the scrub-a-dub-dub. He's making sure he gets to that spot. Watch this one. If you watch the movement off ball, soon as he sees Cancelo's head up, boom, along the line and in behind. Arrives at the spot to score. Here's another one. Soon as Gundogan makes the run, he comes from an offside position, times his run, arrives at the back post. Here's another one. Soon as Walker, I don't even know who this is, soon as whoever that is gets played in behind, arrive to finish. I think that's Gabby Jesus again. Here's another one. Arrive to finish. And over and over and over again, you build these habits, you build these moments of, I'm going to get to the back post. I'm going to get to the back post. I'm going to get inside the fullback, and I'm going to get to the back post. I'm not out here. I'm in here. Right? I'm not floating for a cutback. I'm not here. I'm here. I'm not here. I'm here. I'm getting into the 6-yard box to score. Super valuable for young players. And while they're young, before they have the bad habits of, like, you watch Mudryk, who, like, sits outside here all the time. Like, can you bust your ass to get there and score is really, really valuable. So that is one big area of off-ball stuff I would focus on. And the other off-ball thing I would focus on is movement in behind. So we showed some of those clips in the George video where, like, he releases and gets in behind. And I've like cheated here because I have the tactical cam footage from the Spurs game, but like, you can do so much watching Raheem Sterling in terms of prepping movements to get space in behind. And yes, Spurs played a crazy high line in this game, but like, this is a really good one to show some good stuff. Like, watch Sterling. He gives himself room off of the line, and then he runs along the line and behind into a great chance. Right? This ends up in a great moment. Here's another one. Plays inside to Palmer, is taking off in behind immediately. Gives himself room off the line so he can start, right? Like, this is a big thing with Tyrique George. With Mudryk, if you start 2 yards off the line, if you're quicker than everybody and you start sprinting, you will get a breakaway. He's gone in behind. Here's another one. He gets caught on this one, but it's a great moment. Here's another one. Starts off the line, ball goes wide, I'm gone. This is the one that Chelsea end up scoring on. So, like, it's, again, just 4 clips. Like, this whole video, all the video I showed you was like 3 minutes. You don't have to do 8 hours of video, but showing these clips and talking about, here are the movements I want to see. Here's the end impact of how valuable that can be. And here's how you can have a career as great as Raheem Sterling or as great as Bukayo Saka, and you can become England's next star winger or whatever it is. This is the way to prime it for young players, I think. Anyways, that's going to be a video. We're going to cut the video and the podcast short here, and then we'll do some other stuff. But thank you all for watching. Tyrique George is a player I'm very, very excited about. So we'll cut that stuff there. Cool. All right, now we can just stream and hang out. That was the video. And I didn't hit record on OBS, so I'm going to have to pull it off of YouTube because I'm not doing that again. But that was it. He got questions about Tyrique George stuff. We can talk about that now. Luca Tenerello talking about, I really, really rate him, reminds me of Cho, and that he has a large number of tools to be a great winger. A great winger. Yeah, that's something I definitely agree with. Like, has a lot of flexibility to do different things, which I think is super valuable. And also he seems like not scared to explore them. I think Hudson-Odoi was maybe a little bit conservative. And also, like, once he lost his burst, when he did his Achilles, like, that was kind of it. Like, there's not much you're going to do from that point on. But the ability to do different things was huge with Hudson-Odoi. Thomas Wilkinson, interested to see how you feel how he compares to other wingers who came through the academy like Hudson-Odoi, Omari, Boga, Musonda. He's much better than Omari and Musonda, in my opinion. I think he is like similar to what Hudson-Odoi was. I think Hudson-Odoi was a better goal scorer than Tyrique George is. Like, Tyrique George, the vibe I get, and if you look at the PL2 stuff, there's a lot of long shots. And that's why I talk about trimming this fat to get here. He takes a lot of long shots. And in PL2, because the goalkeeping standard is quite low, he scores a lot of them. And I think what I have been excited by in his first 10 minutes is, like, he has not been wasteful with his shooting. Like, he's taking a good number of shots, and yes, they're from, like, kind of wide angles, but they're not, like, far. And that, I think, is quite valuable. Whereas Hudson-Odoi, I thought, did a much better job of getting into the box. However, I think that Hudson-Odoi basically never had a left foot. And I think, and was also not, like, Hudson-Odoi, once he got to senior level, was such, like, a winger that he never really, like, got into the box for good shot locations. He had that one stretch with, post Sarri where he was, like, making runs in behind and arriving at the back post. That was really nice, but it never really stuck. And I think that's going to be a big differentiator for Tyrique George. Is, like, he has shown some appetite to arrive in those locations, and he needs to if he wants to be a 20-goal a season scoring winger. Boga was very good in the academy. Very, very, very good. But he's another one who probably skewed too dribbly than goal scorer. And Musonda was, like, more of a 10 to me than a winger. But that's kind of my feel on it. Like, I'm really excited about Tyrique George through the first third of the season or whatever it is. Like, I'm pretty happy. And I think with the fixture congestion that's coming, he's going to get more looks, which is exciting. Ademola Steven, I think he's more of a Barcola kind of player. Just need to build his physical profile. Yeah, like, Barcola is a really good comparison in terms of build. Barcola has been, like, dude, Barcola has been so productive this year with PSG. Like, even if you put aside the XG beating, like, he's been nuts for them this year. Like, really, really, really good. And PSG are, like, much better than everyone else in the league this year. But yeah, he's been, like, one of the best attackers in Europe good so far this year. That's one, like, kind of looking back, you're like, man, I would have liked Barcola over, I don't know, Neto or something like that. Or I don't even know who we bought last summer instead of Barcola. Who did we end up getting after Barcola? Because that was, like, the one, right? But that, I think, is a good one. Not a huge crowd today, but we have some mailbag questions too. The other thing I'll say before we get into mailbag questions, if you're over on Blue Sky, I have the same thing as Cured Oil again. I'm much more active on here than I was before. Chazé, Palmer. Yeah, but no, Palmer and Barcola weren't, like, it wasn't one or the other, was it? I mean, I guess I can't be mad if it's Palmer then. I guess I can't be mad if it's Palmer. Anyways, yeah, if you're on Blue Sky, I'm over there a lot more now than Twitter. It's just a nicer place to be. I still have my Twitter and I'm still on it, but this place is popping. So I would recommend you check it out. Some mailbag cues that I thought were fun. Let's start with the first one. Would I consider doing novelty videos or live streams, Thomas Wilkinson? Buddy, we got a tier list here. I don't know if we'll do it today because I think it'll be more fun with more people, but it's there. So we'll do it at some point. Jacob Messi, what is one system change you'd make to maximize the players we've typically used in our Premier League squad, not including adding 2 shots a match, as you mentioned in the last stream, by using different players? The most obvious tactical tweak to me is, let's get the tactical board out. Let's open my collection. The most obvious tactical tweet to me. The chat for a tier list video would be so funny. It would be unhinged, I think. No, I don't want that one. That one, too many players are disorganized. The most obvious tactical tweak to me is you do this. Cucurella goes deep. Sancho wide. Pretend this is Nkunku, Palmer, Gusto, and Enzo is the right one to cover the fact that you have a bombing fullback. This is, to me, the easiest tweak to get free juice in suiting these players more. I think that's the most obvious tweak, is you get Nkunku here, you get Palmer there, you get Gusto, Reece James there. That is the most obvious one. And you get Enzo on the right side of the pitch. And if they're deep and you're like, oh, well, the fullback is out on that side, so those should be like this. Oh, the fullback is out on that side, so I want Caicedo there. No problem, man. I'm fine with that. If you want to put Enzo on the left, fine. Not my favorite, but fine. Kieran, what do you think of a 3 at the back with Neto as left wing back and Nkunku plus Palmer as inside 10-8s? Yeah, I mean, so listen, you tell me. Nkunku is 14, right? I think that's right. So imagine. Cool. What is functionally the difference between this is 3-4-3 and if I make this, I guess Nkunku's not 14. I don't know why I did that. This is Neto. Imagine what is the difference is between this 3-4-3 with Neto as left wing back, or it's a 4 and Palmer is the right winger. There's no difference. It's the same thing. You're going to end up in the same shape. So Rashida Hussein said in the tweak you mentioned, you could essentially form back 5 and Neto as the left winger. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think when we're talking about 3s and 4s, like, I think at some point, these are not, like, coaches don't really think in terms of, like, we play a 4-4-2 anymore. Like, that's not really how it is talked about anymore. And I think you're right. Like, that is totally a tweak you could do. But this is, I think, in terms of getting Palmer inside as the right 10 with Gusto or James around him, and Nkunku as the left 10, or Felix as the left 10. Like, that is kind of the one that I would look at as an obviously worthwhile tweak to explore. And that doesn't mean we have to do it or stick with it. I also thought Palmer left 10 was a tweak we should explore, and it mostly hasn't worked. So that's one place I'd go. It's not over. SJ, having seen what you've seen so far, do you think hiring Maresca was the right choice? And if not, which manager at the time did you think we'd have been better off hiring? When we hired Poch, I wanted Arne Slot. I did like a pretty solid deep dive on all the different people, and Arne Slot and Ruben Amorim were my 1 and 2. And I was like, I want Slot. I'd heard really good things from people who'd worked with him about how open he was to analytics. He like reaches out to analytics practitioners in the offseason to like just learn stuff. I thought Arne Slot would have been a terrific hire. He's been really good at Liverpool so far. Really, really, really good. So that was my one when we got Poch. If you put that aside and say, okay, he wasn't available, he was definitely going to Liverpool. Xabi Alonso was the other one that I really wanted, but that was kind of off the table. Putting I guess him aside, like Ruben Amorim is one of the other ones I looked at. I think he would have been very different stylistically than Maresca, not what the club wanted, but I would have been into it. I think I perhaps still would have been fine with not firing Pochettino, but I think this is better so far, for sure. So I guess like my cop-out answer is like it's I don't know, shrug emoji. Like I think it's fine, and I think it's worked out. I think it's worked out just fine so far. I'm not mad about it. But Arne Slot, Ruben Amorim, and Xabi Alonso were like my three that I wanted. Those were the three that I wanted. Savid, I saw you had a question in the chat. Feel free to send the whole thing. I guess you hit enter early by accident. That was a good one. Do you think from this point forward we could possibly see an adjustment on Chelsea's recruitment style, or do you expect more of the same? Luca Tinarello, got to leave in a minute at Q for if when you're done with the mailbag is, should we be exploring Tyrique? I'm kind of tired of attacking mids who don't defend, but my goodness, I want him at Chelsea. Yeah, Tyrique was one I wanted. It was like very interested in last season because I thought he would be what Palmer has been. But I think now, no, like I don't think it's worthwhile to get him. But he was definitely one that I was like, dude, this guy's legit. But I think he's more of a ultra high usage for a bad Premier League team, like Dimitri Payet at West Ham type guy. Like if I was a much worse team, I would pay $30 million and let him run the show because he's legit, very, very good player. On adjusting our recruitment style, I think a lot of that is going to depend what happens with the ownership, but I think like we will see the volume decrease from here. Like I think at this point the like stable of players is what it is, and it'll be mostly one in, one out from here. At the same time, like there's a lot of players in the squad and the club that like they're still looking to move. Like if you look at the larger squad list, like Cassidy, Detro Fofana, Carney, Broya, who hasn't moved yet, Chaloba, the goalkeepers, like there's a lot of guys still to go. So we'll see from there. I think the difficult thing is like once you get into Champions League, which I think will happen. We've talked about this pretty extensively. I think will happen. Is the wages are going to go up a lot because a lot of these players have Champions League wage escalators. And I think you're going to have a bunch of guys leave when you hit Champions League. Because I think there's a lot of guys who are just like not that good and aren't playing. Like Axel Disasi is somebody that's been like pretty openly touted about trying to find a move. Like Chelsea really, really, really tried to move him to Newcastle when whoever Newcastle were trying to get this summer, when Guerhi fell apart for them. Like they really tried to get Disasi to Newcastle. So we'll see how that goes or what happens. But I suspect it will slow down. But I also thought it would slow down after last summer, and then this summer was insane again. So what do I know? I totally forgot our owners hate each other. Yeah, dude, they talked about this on Straight Outta Cobham, the Athletic pod, about how like what's happening with that, and they're like, I don't know. Neither team wants to sell. Neither side wants to sell to the other, and the team is good, so nobody's mad about it, which I think is right. Do I think the squad possesses the tools to break down low blocks consistently? Orchestrating play / controlling tempo and having a dominant box presence are some of the biggest concerns. IMO. So let me split the two parts of that. Do I think they possess the tools to break down low blocks consistently? Yes. Chelsea have played 2 low blocks this season. the Conference League, where like the Conference League teams suck. So like, of course, you can break down that low block. The low blocks they have played this season, not a low block. Low block, pumped them, not a low block. Mid block, pumped them, not a low block. Low block, pumped them, not a low block, not a low block, not a low block. Mid block, pretty solid performance. What we've seen is that Chelsea are way better when teams sit off them. Way better when teams sit off them. Chelsea's build has been somewhat fragile this season, the build-up stuff, and they have been somewhat susceptible to getting, not dismantled, but like giving up high turnovers against teams who press them. And the low blocky teams they have smashed. And okay, yes, they don't win, they draw both of them when they should win both, but like I'm not super worried about that. On the orchestrating play, controlling tempo, I think Chelsea have had a hard time doing that against teams who press, but I think that's kind of inherent to the challenge of teams who press. And having a dominant box presence, I think that is a real thing. I think Chelsea have not done a great job of getting numbers in the box and not done a great job of generating shot volume. I think those are two objectively true things. But we've talked pretty extensively on other streams about how to get more shot volume, whether tactically or by selection. That's a thing Chelsea really need to do. CFC work. How absurd is Estevao stats-wise? Brother. So I tweeted this because I've been using the McClock bot. I've been using the McClock bot, like scatterplot generator, and it's very good. And just to see, and it's very funny. I'll tweet like some very thoughtful analysis with like video and like breaking stuff down, and it'll do like okay numbers. I just tweeted a scatter plot of Estevao, and it gets way more interactions. I did the same thing with Andre Santos. It gets way more interactions. People just like scatter plots. But Estevao, if you look at like the fringe leagues, so like MLS, Argentina, Brazil, Holland, Belgium, Portugal, like the lower leagues, Estevao is nuts in terms of dribbling. Very funnily, Byron Aduboakai, curious how you think the winger logjam shakes out with George and Estevao joining next summer. Tyrique George would be here on this plot. He's like 5 carries into the penalty area and like 9 take-ons. He would be out here if you used his youth data. And I think if you used his Conference League data, he's like here or something, which is pretty crazy. Estevao is insane statistically. Like just the things he is doing as a creator and as a dribbler for an 18-year-old in a not terrible league in Brazil is really, really high. He's leading the Brazilian league in goals and assists as an 18-year-old. And the reason I say he's breaking the bounds of any realistic projection of his translation to Europe is like so here are the like list of wingers that played in Brazil that came to Europe. Okay. We have Angelo, who was like way lower minutes and way lower output in Brazil. Came to France, was like, okay, didn't really generate much output. You have Rodrigo, played way less in Brazil, did way less, came to Europe, did not very much until he got good. Yeah, I don't know why the Estevao picture looks like this. Dimitri said I can change it, but I don't know how. But it's very funny with his big old forehead. You have Vinicius Jr., played much less in Brazil, did much less in Brazil, came to Spain and was like not great for 2 years before exploding. And then you have Neymar, who did way more than Estevao because he was there for longer. He came over later. But like Estevao broke Neymar's record for U18 performance in Brazil. Like, has many more goals and assists than Neymar did at the same age. And Neymar came over and was excellent for one of the best teams of all time right away. So, like, we're at a point where we have zero comparables. Zero comparables. There is nobody that has made the jump to Europe recently, like last 7 years, from a similar tiered league with the same level of performance. Like, your closest is like Miguel Almiron coming from MLS to Newcastle, but Newcastle were way worse, and Almiron was way older than Estevao. He was like 24. We just don't have like really good comparables for how good he is, and he's real exciting. What I will say to you is, if you swapped Estevao and Tyrique George was playing for Palmeiras, I bet you'd be pretty similar. That's my spicy take. That's my spicy take. Phil will love that one, I'm sure. If he listens. On the winger logjam and how I think that shakes out, I think it's pretty obvious Chelsea are going to move wingers. I think, like, Raheem Sterling, they have to move. Though, like, there are worlds where I would have been interested in exploring him this season. I am still holding out hope that the Sancho deal has a like secret minutes clause that if he doesn't play enough, the buy doesn't happen, because I think that's just another one that's going to make a decent amount of money and you don't want to play. Still don't love the Neto deal in terms of price, but like, I think Mudryk is maybe shit or get off the pot time, where like you have a lot of wingers now. He can't play them all. I think that's a big one. And I think, like, I wouldn't be shocked if Chelsea chose to move on from Nani Madueke in the summer, because he's good. He's good, but he's not amazing. And there probably would be appetite to buy him from you. Like, you could probably move him to Newcastle for a very big fee. You could probably move him to, like, maybe Liverpool want him as a Salah replacement guy when Salah ages out. I think that's another one you could look at and be like, I don't know. But I would be very surprised if Chelsea didn't sell 2 wingers this summer, Sterling +1, and then go from there and see what you want to do. But like, Estevao is going to play right away for sure. And I think with Tyrique George, like, it's very frustrating. Like, I would have loved if Chelsea were a little bit lighter in terms of squad this season, because I think with the Conference League there would have been a lot more scope to get kids in. I've been thinking recently about, like, how would it have been if Pochettino was the manager with Conference League? And I was like, I think with his, like, smaller squad, I think it would have been good. We would have gotten a lot more Carney. We would have gotten a lot more kids. But then I'm like, no, he just would have played the first team guys more, I think. So that's tough. Somebody asked about Guiu. Would like your thought, Adam Olsen, would like your thoughts on Mark Guiu as the physical skill set? And I think the floor is okay. I think the disjointed recruitment has messed up his minutes. And then Thomas Wilkinson said he's a football manager recruit. He's a cheap deal. I like Guiu much more than consensus. I think he's very physically talented. I think he's very good at his movement off ball. He's very good at making runs in the box. He is a relentless presser. He has not scored as much as you would like, but I'm very keen on him longer term. At the same time, I think him staying and playing, he's going to end up with like 800 minutes or something, probably less, like 600 minutes. I think that is way worse than if you sent him on loan to Belgium to score 15 goals, or Holland to score 15 goals. I think that would have been way better for his development. Like, goal scoring is a learned skill. It is a learned skill that you have to get good at. and I just don't think like he's there yet, and that's fine. Like that's not an indictment on him. And in terms of the deal, like when you have an expensive investment like Washington sitting on the bench, like Thomas Wilkinson said, and then you have Donnell McNeely, you had Mason Burstow, you had other options in the same role. Are we not seeing Shimuka because Guiu is playing? Like, I don't know. I think it's another one like I would have sent him on loan. I think the Washington deal is still like objectively the strangest deal we've done. Kieran, favorite word, to score 15 goals somewhere, used a lot for Broya too. It's legitimately, I think, the most true thing about striker development is that the best way to learn to score goals is to score goals, if that makes sense. You see very, very, very few strikers who are like 5 to 7 goal a season guys suddenly learn to become 30 goal a season guys. It really doesn't happen, in my opinion. What you see way more is guys score 15, 20, 25 goals a season against worse teams, come up and score 15, 20, 25 goals a season against better teams. But like learning to score goals is a legitimate skill. And also, like, I hate the word confidence because I think it's like a BS excuse that everyone uses when things don't go their way. I hate the word confidence. However, I think in terms of development, seeing success is really important. So, like, if you are Armando Broya or Mark Guiu or David Washington or Donnell McNeely or Tammy Abraham, like going out on loan somewhere and scoring 15 goals somewhere is going to be way better for your learning of how to score goals than playing for Southampton too early and scoring 6 goals in all transitional situations for a terrible team. For a terrible, terrible team is just going to be way worse for you, in my opinion. So that's what I think about Guiu. That's also what I think about David Washington. Like, but David Washington, like, there's some agent shenanigans going on there, like for sure linked to Andre Santos or to Estevao or something. Like, there's definitely stuff going on there because he did not stand out as particularly good at Santos. From what I looked at, I'm not a Brazilian expert. Like, I'm not Jess Frota or one of those people, but that was not, to me, not something I was like super concerned about. Just remember, we also have Juan Richards, who's been injured for this season, but when he returns, probably displaces someone to start as well. I would be shocked if he was like a real consideration. Like, he basically cost them nothing and was just like a lottery ticket. Like, none of those academy guys, you're really concerned about the resource spend on them. Chris, is George rated internally nearly as highly as Estevao? I don't know. I would assume so, given how early he's getting minutes. And like, of the last few preseason tours, he's like the only kid to get like a real look in preseason. That's a real one. But yeah, I don't know. I like Guiu. Washington is interesting. Some people like him. I don't love what I've seen of him, but some people like him. Oh, sorry, meant the U21s take Muka's play. Even then, I don't. If they think Shim is better or like want Shim longer term, like I don't think they'll drop Shim just to get Richards back in. Like, that's generally how it's gone. Do I think they'll loan George in January? No. Maresca strikes me as a... Pochettino was like this, that when he was at Spurs and at Chelsea, he didn't want to loan young players that he would eventually use because they would go... He thought they would like build bad habits elsewhere. So like Alfie Gilchrist comes in and like sticks around and plays a little bit. And at Spurs, like, people got pretty mad because there were like some good kids who stayed and didn't play to like learn from him. Bielsa was similar to this, I believe. Maresca feels more in that vein, so I would be surprised. I would be surprised if George went on loan in January. There's a world where like he plays pretty well the rest of the season, and you decide that him going on loan to Strasbourg is very worthwhile, though. Next year, that I could totally see. Ligue 1's like a pretty winger-friendly league. I would be pretty okay with that. I would be pretty okay with that. What happens with Vale? Vale's going to go for no money somewhere, and he's going to be so good in the championship. Harvey Vale is like a legit excellent player. His career has been so unlucky with like kind of shitty loans and like being not as heralded, but he's a very good player. A friend of mine is doing recruitment with a League One team, and I was like, you should take him. And they're like, he wants way too much money. He wants to play at a higher level. So that's the thing. Blue Sky. We got some Blue Sky ones as well. Phil, big Chelsea youth man, sent a question. Why do you think so many Chelsea managers have moved Cobham graduates out of their academy positions into other adjacent or completely new ones? Hudson-Odoi being used on the right more than the left. Tyrique so far in parallel to that. Alfie Gilchrist at right back is another one. Lewis Hall playing left back and left wing back. Thomas Wilkinson, I kind of just assumed Strasbourg was going to be used exclusively for our foreign young players. Definitely don't think so. I think them having I'm blanking on his name, the English guy as the manager who played for Hull and managed Hull, and he's really good. I can't remember his name, and I'm blanking. I can picture him in his hoodie that he wears with glasses in my head. And I keep wanting to say Curtis Davies, and it's not Curtis Davies. I think them having an English manager at Strasbourg, that was like there will be Chelsea kids going there. I'm pretty confident about that. Strasbourg have been fun, by the way. Andre Santos, that guy slaps. Why do I think Cobham players get moved out of position by Chelsea managers? So I think there's three things. I think the first thing is that coaches have their own agendas. And if you convert a player's position, Liam Rosenior, thank you very much. Appreciate that. If you take a player and move their position, you get credit for that. The player does not get credit for that. You get credit for that. So I think that is legit, is definitely part of it. It's small, but it's part of it. I think the second is that Chelsea Academy players, Cobham players, are both very smart and have often come out at a very high physical level. And Chelsea's academy development has focused on a versatility. Like, you have to play multiple positions in the academy. They've historically played a lot of 3-4-3. If you're a right back, you play right center back and right wing back. If you're a 6, you play 6, 8, and 10. If you're a center back, you play center back and full back. If you're a striker, you play as a striker, a 10, and a winger. Like, you get lots of looks, and it makes it much easier to bring them through. And the third is, I just think some of these coaches have not been great about like focusing on player planning. Like, Frank Lampard was very good at bringing players through in their position and planning appropriately for that. And I think Chelsea have been really bad at that, just in general. That like, okay, you have Mudryk and Tyrique George, and you're bringing them both through, and you want them both to get development minutes. They can't both play left winger. So now you have a choice about who do you move out of left winger. And while we know Tyrique George can do not left winger stuff, and we know Mudryk cannot do not left winger stuff. And so now you're left with, you kind of have to play Tyrique out, or you have to not play Mudryk, and like they're not going to not play Mudryk. So I think that's the big thing of where you end up. I do think it's something Chelsea need to do better at. Like even like Sam Raksaki came on and played as like a 9. Like what are we doing? That's not what position he plays. Like I'm pretty sure Keanu Dyer's going to come on and play as a winger for some reason. And I think it's like a real problem. But that's kind of my 3 things. And I think sometimes it's all of them. Sometimes it's each of them. Sometimes it's each individual situation. But it is a problem. That much is very much true. Yeah, Adam O'Sullivan. Lewis Hall got into the England squad by playing left back. So he like played some left back in the academy before. But him coming through as like a left center back, left wing back was surprising. Have any Strasbourg players piqued my interest? Georgi Petrovic, baby, outside of Andre Santos. Yes. I like Habib Diarra has been interesting to me, though not particularly good. Dylan Bakwa is also interesting, but not great. He is one I look at and I'm like, could you turn him into a left back? And that excites me. People like Nanasi, I don't really care about him. Diego Moreira as a left back has been very interesting to me. Left back, left wing back. I've been super interested in that. And it's funny because I said this. Wingers who don't score goals should play fullback. And that's fun. And where's the other guy that I like? One of the center backs, but I can't remember which one. Because they're all rather large. I can't remember which one. But one of the center backs I quite like. It might be I think it's this guy. I think it's Silla. It's the one who scored an own goal against PSG. I quite like him. But I'm really just watching for Andre and Georgi Petrovic. I question the idea it's something specific to common kids, though. Saka happened, Nani played up front. Wasn't Trent more midfieldery? No, for sure. It's not just a Chelsea problem. It kind of swings around. Like McTominay was a striker at youth levels and then came through as a 6. Like it's definitely not just a Cobham thing. But it's also something that like Barcelona do very well. Their players come through in their position. So when they come into the first team, they know exactly what they're doing. Like I think there is value to that. Shrey asked last time on Twitter about field tilt, I think, and asked about the offside trap we're implementing, specifically the offside trap on the edge of the box, which is a Manuel Pellegrini thing. So Enzo Maresca was an assistant for Pellegrini for a while. Pellegrini's ideas to defend the box is to set an offside trap on the edge of the box. We have seen Chelsea have been burned by it a few times this season. The goal against Arsenal, the goal against United. It's been a thing. I don't love it. I don't love it that deep because you have no ability to recover. I like offside traps at half. I like the way Hansi Flick sets his very high line. Because if you can get adequate ball pressure, it's very difficult to play into depth, is one. The second is if you have athletically talented center backs, even if they get in behind, you can recover a lot. Like Bayern, when Hansi Flick's Bayern won the Champions League, like they had Alphonso Davies was like the free safety who like you'd play him behind and he'd just go blow it up and you'd be fine. Like if you think back to when they destroyed Chelsea in the Champions League under Lampard, like that was their offside trap. Like you saw Chelsea would get him behind and Alphonso Davies would just kill it. So I don't like the edge of the box offside trap is my take on it. I can't say I've done like a tremendous amount of research, but I think like in your box, you got to defend, pick up the runners and defend. And it's not like there are transition benefits to it or something like that. Like I just think it's not a bright way to defend. It's one of the things I have not liked about Maresca so far is the deeper penalty box defending stuff. Do you think a Barcelona type youth pipeline is even possible for a Premier League club? No. League's too good. There's not enough bad teams. Like you can't play 5 academy kids against the worst team in the league. You'd get run. You'd get killed. I think you can play 3, but I don't think you can play 5. And I think also, like, the coaches in the Premier League are too good. If you play the same way every week, people find you out. You have to have ideas and evolve and grow. The league is way too good. Even the best teams, look at Pep and look at Liverpool and look at Arteta, like all 3 of those clubs have gradually changed over the years and added and tweaked. Like I don't think you can do that anymore. Adamola Bob. Brief thought on Ish Samuel Smith and his prospects. I have not liked ISS when I have watched him at youth levels. He reminds me of Dujon Sterling in that he's very athletically talented, but he plays on the left. I don't really like him. Some people really do like him. Chelsea paid a lot of money for an academy player to get him. I don't know. There's lots of youth prospects I don't like that end up being very good. I famously thought Harry Kane was rubbish. But I also thought Paul Pogba at 15 was going to be a France starter. So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but I also haven't watched thousands of his minutes or anything. I'm not a big guy, not a big fan though. What do I think of Gusto overlapping and Nani coming in and taking up the half space? I think it will improve his shot quality. So this is a really good question. Okay. So I like Gusto overlapping. And one of the reasons that whatever, we don't even have to get into that. I think the more interesting half of this question is talking about Nani. Can Nani come into the half space and will it improve his shot quality? So number one, I don't like Nani coming into the half space because he's very bad on the half turn. He's not able to receive and shift and go. He is much better when he has the field in front of him. He has his back to the touchline. He doesn't have to check his shoulders. He doesn't have to interpret that space particularly. I think that's not a strength of his. At the same time, it objectively will improve his shot quality. His shot volume will come down a lot, but it will improve his quality. I think if you are bringing someone wide, it means Nani is not playing. Because I think he is like Doku. I think he is sit on the touchline and dribble at people. He's a really, really posh Matty Etherington. If you want a real Barclays man name there. I just think he's just not that. I just think he's not that guy in the half space. That's my thoughts on it. But I think Gusto overlapping and somebody else, Palmer being the right winger, and then you play a 10 that's not Palmer, I think opens up lots of options for you. Whew. With Esteval coming in, who do you think gets off between Neto and Nani? Probably Nani, but I don't know if both of them do. Neto to me is a left winger, not a right winger. I don't think we're going to see him play on the right very often at all. Even though I know Maresca said that, but I don't think it's going to happen very frequently. What are my thoughts on Man City's struggles and if there's a real chance they drop? I mean, I think Man City are just really old, man. I think they're old and slow. If you look by minutes, 31, 30, 30, 29, 34, 34, 33, 30, 29. They're just not... They're not young anymore, and their midfield is so thin. Their midfield is so thin. It is Kovacic, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, Nunez is rubbish. They're really old in midfield and really thin in midfield. This is a very small squad. So I think I would suspect... I didn't even know Issa Kabore played for Man City. Really? That's fun. I would suspect that they will spend a ton of money, either in January or this summer, and that they'll spend a ton of money to re-up, and they'll move on from some of the older guys, because they're very good. They're very good, but I don't think they'll. I think they'll still be. I think they'll still be pretty comfortably a top 3 team between those guys. Alrighty. Well, get your last questions in. Thomas, we're going to save the tier maker. We're going to save the tier maker for another day. But we will do it. It's there. I have it. But we'll do it another day. Anyways, that was the Tyrique George stuff. That was kind of the everything. I think that was pretty fun. I think there was a lot of really interesting points there to be made. Next weekend, no stream. I'm going to the Grand Prix in Vegas, so nothing post Leicester. There'll be a pod Sunday night probably, but it won't be live. And then the hectic schedule comes. No international break till March. I think we play 14 games in 10 weeks or something like that. It's going to be very hectic holiday period for this team. But we'll see. I'm excited. Anyways, that's all for me. I hope you all enjoyed. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, enjoy